This is the first testimony from someone who served as an Air Koryo flight attendant, North Korea's only international airline. What she witnessed at airports from Beijing to Bangkok contradicted everything she'd been taught. When a senior colleague attempted escape, and 3 generations of her family faced punishment, this 22-year-old knew her next Bangkok layover would be her last. This is an exclusive account that reveals how even North Korea's most privileged see the cracks in the system. For more exclusive testimonies, subscribe and become part of our investigative community. These stories need to be heard. There was a young woman in North Korea who became the youngest international flight attendant for Air Koryo at just 20. Pyongyang to Beijing, Pyongyang to Bangkok, in a crisp blue uniform. She looked like someone living a glamorous life. But every trip overseas changed her in ways she never expected. Outside North Korea, she saw young people laughing freely, dating openly, studying in cafes, taking photos without fear, and that freedom stayed in her head long after the plane landed. Because even as a flight attendant, she wasn't free. State security watched her every move. There were thought inspections after every flight. And she witnessed what happened when a senior attendant tried to escape. Not only the person, their family too, even 3 generations punished under collective guilt. Then, in June 2024, at a hotel in Bangkok, she made a decision that would split her life in 2. What did she choose? And where is she now? This video is a reconstructed story. If you support this channel, please subscribe and like. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. My story begins in Cheongjin, North Hamgyong Province. Cheongjin is a port city. If you compare it to South Korea, it's like Busan by the sea. I was born there in 2002. My mother was a local Cheongjin woman. My father was a Koryo Saram, an ethnic Korean from Russia. In the early 2000s, he came to Cheongjin for North Korea-Russia trade work. That's where he met my mother. My mother always said he was gentle, responsible, the kind of man who made you feel safe. Back then, international marriages were rare in North Korea, but they still happened sometimes. As a child, I looked different. My eyes were lighter, my nose stood out more. My features didn't match the other kids around me. At school, I heard it all. Russian kid, mixed blood. In kindergarten, I came home crying more than once. But my mother never let me collapse. Mira, she would say, you're smart. You can speak 2 languages. Your father was a good man. My father returned to Russia when I was 5. After that, my mother raised me alone. When I think about it now, it still hurts. She carried everything by herself. Still, one thing became my advantage: Russian. Because of that, I got into a foreign language school. In Pyongyang in middle school. I studied English there too. My grades were strong. Then came 2022. I was 20. I saw a recruitment notice. Air Koryo was hiring international flight attendants. Minimum height 165 centimeters. Foreign language ability preferred. Neat appearance. It felt like it was written for me. Mom, I said, I want to try. She looked worried right away. Mira, the competition is brutal. And the security screening, it's not normal. She was right, but I wanted it too badly. So she finally nodded. The process was exhausting. First, documents, then medical exams, then interviews, then ideological background checks. More than 100 applied. Fewer than 10 made it. And somehow, I did. I was 20, the youngest person accepted. The day I got the notice, my mother held me and cried. My daughter, you did it. Your father would be proud. At the time, I felt like I'd won the world. Pyongyang training. That blue uniform. An international flight. It sounded like a dream. I didn't understand something yet. That the sky would show me the real world. And once you see it, you don't unsee it. After 3 months of training, my first flight arrived. Summer 2022. Pyongyang to Beijing. When the plane lifted off, my heart felt like it would burst. Excitement, fear, pride. Beijing airport was the first shock. It was massive, modern, bright. The duty-free shops looked like another planet. Cosmetics, bags, clothes, electronics. Pyongyang department stores didn't compare. But the biggest shock wasn't the products. It was the people, young men and women my age, walking freely, laughing loudly, no one looking over their shoulder. Girls wore makeup openly, short skirts, bright colors. Guys dyed their hair, wore earrings. In North Korea, that kind of self-expression can get you punished. Bangkok hit even harder. In the hotel lobby, young people were taking photos on their phones, laughing, holding hands like it was nothing. In cafes, students worked on laptops for hours, coffee in one hand, future in the other. I kept thinking, so this is how they live. Then we flew to Vladivostok. That one was different. It was my father's hometown. I remember walking outside when an elderly woman spoke to me in Koryo, a Korean dialect passed down among ethnic Koreans in the former Soviet region. "Miss, where are you from?" she asked. "North Korea," I said. Her eyes widened. "Oh my, from North Korea. That must be hard." It was just one sentence, but it hit like a fist to the chest. Still, none of us were truly free. Every time 10 flight attendants traveled, 1 or 2 state security officers came with us. They watched what we bought, where we went, who we spoke to. After each trip, we faced thought inspections. Someone would ask, "Comrade, what did you think after seeing capitalist society?" There was only one safe answer. Yes, it looked glamorous on the surface. But the wealth gap is severe. People suffer. It reminded me how great our republic is. You say it, even when your mind is screaming the opposite. We also had to hand over foreign currency. Any allowance, tips, even small gifts reported and surrendered. We'd receive only a fraction back, maybe $50 a month. And we were expected to be grateful. As the months passed, something kept building inside me. Those smiling young people in Beijing. The freedom in Bangkok cafes. That grandmother's worried eyes in Vladivostok. And one question wouldn't leave. I'm 21. Is this really all my life is going to be? In the spring of 2023, something happened that changed everything. There was a senior flight attendant on our team. Her name was Sujin. She was around 30. She treated me like a real younger sister. On my first flight, when my hands were shaking, she held them and said, "You're fine, Mira. I'll show you everything." She was good at her job. Kind to passengers, soft-spoken. Then her face started looking darker. One day, before a Bangkok trip, I heard crying in the bathroom. "Uni, what's wrong?" She waved me off. "No, Mira, it's nothing. Just family issues." Later, another attendant told me the truth. Sujin's father had died. He hadn't gotten proper treatment. There wasn't enough money. And in North Korea, even basic medicine can be impossible to find. Not long after that, Sujin didn't come back from Bangkok. At first, it was confusion. Where is she? Then chaos. State security stormed in. Interrogations started immediately. What did she say to you? Was she acting strange? Who was she close to? A few days later, we heard what happened. Sujin tried to reach the South Korean embassy in Bangkok. Thai police caught her. She was forcibly sent back to North Korea. My body went cold. And then came the worst part. Not only Sujin, her mother, her younger brother, they were taken too, sent to a political prison camp. Because in North Korea, escape can mean punishment for your entire bloodline. That night, I couldn't sleep. All I could see was my mother. She was in her mid-50s by then. If I ever failed, would she be dragged away because of me? The fear became physical. After that, the surveillance grew tighter. The thought inspections became more frequent. One officer cornered me once and said, "You were close to Sujin, right? You're not thinking the same thing, are you?" It sounded like a question, but it was a threat. And strangely, another emotion started growing inside me. Bigger than fear, anger. Why is this life normal for us? Why does dreaming of a better life destroy 3 generations? At 21, North Korea started feeling less like a country and more like a prison. Then 2024 arrived. I turned 22. My peers in other countries were dating, studying, planning their futures. I was living under surveillance, inspections, and controlled breath. One scene in Bangkok kept replaying in my mind. A girl around my age sat in a hotel cafe with a laptop. Focused, determined. A boyfriend brought her coffee. They smiled like the world belonged to them. I couldn't stop staring. I wanted that life. I wanted to study what I chose, love who I chose, build a future I chose. And then the hardest part came. My mother. Every time I visited home in Chongjin, she cooked for me like I was still a child. My daughter, you need to eat well. Flying must be exhausting. Watching her smile hurt more than any interrogation. She had suffered her whole life raising me alone. Now she was finally proud, finally happy, and I couldn't bring myself to say, "Mom, I'm leaving." I also couldn't take her with me. She was older. Escape is dangerous even for the young. And if I failed, she'd pay for it. So I thought, maybe it's better if she doesn't know. In the spring of 2024, I decided, on my next Bangkok flight, I would run. For months, I quietly gathered information. How to reach the South Korean embassy. Who might help? What routes were possible? My last visit home stays burned in my mind. Early May, my mother made doenjang jjigae soybean paste stew my favorite. Next time you come, she said, I'll make meat soup too. I swallowed hard. Mom, I love you. She stared at me. Why are you saying that all of a sudden? Is something going on? I forced a smile. No, I just don't say it enough. That night, I watched her sleep. Her hands full of wrinkles. Her back bent from years of work. I wondered if I'd ever see her again. Tears came, but I wiped them fast. The next morning, I left Chongjin and looked back. My mother waving in front of our house. The alley where I ran as a child. The hill where you could smell the ocean. I pressed it all into my memory. In my head, I said, Mom, I'm sorry. Please wait for me. Someday, we'll meet again. Then I returned to Pyongyang and waited for the day that would decide everything. June 15, 2024. A date I will never forget. That morning at Pyongyang Sunan Airport, I checked the schedule. My name was there. Pyongyang to Bangkok. Departure 11 a.m. My hands started shaking. Packing felt unreal. Passport. Cash. No phone, of course. Phones were monitored. I slipped one thing deep into my bag. A photo of my mother. During briefing, the captain spoke. I barely heard a word. I kept nodding like a machine. A senior attendant leaned in. Mira, are you okay? You look pale. I think I'm a little motion sick, I lied. When the plane took off, Pyongyang shrank under the clouds. A thought landed in my chest. This might be the last time. During the 4.5-hour flight, I worked normally. Served meals, sold duty-free items, smiled, said, thank you. Inside, my mind kept praying. Dad, if you can hear me, help me. And please protect Mom. We arrived at Suvarnabhumi Airport around 4 p.m. Immigration, baggage, crew bus to the hotel. Same routine as always. I checked in and entered my room around 5 p.m. A security officer told us, meet in the lobby at 7 p.m. 2 hours until then. I waited. Later, the hotel grew quiet. Around 2 a.m., I sat up in bed. I changed into regular clothes. I carried one small bag. I took my shoes in my hand so they wouldn't make sound. I opened the door slowly. A tiny creak. My heart nearly stopped. I moved down the hallway toward the emergency exit. I was terrified an alarm would go off. But it stayed silent. Stairs. One step at a time. My legs felt like rubber. At the first floor, I slipped out a back door. It was 230 a.m. Bangkok was still alive. Lights, cars, noise in the distance. I flagged a taxi. I said, Korean embassy, but the driver didn't understand. So I handed him a paper with the address in English. The taxi moved. The hotel got smaller behind me. And something became painfully clear. There was no going back. Tears ran down my face. fear, grief, and strangely, a thin, sharp feeling of relief. At 22, I had just made the biggest gamble of my life. The taxi stopped in front of the South Korean embassy around 3 a.m. The gates were closed, of course. I stood there, frozen. What now? Then I saw someone approaching. A Korean man. He looked at me carefully and asked, in Korean, "Are you from North Korea?" My throat tightened. Yes, I said, crying. He lowered his voice. "It's okay. We'll help you." Later, I learned he was from an NGO that helps North Korean escapees. With his help, I entered the embassy in the morning. There were questions, identity verification, procedures. Then I was taken to a Thai immigration detention facility. It was outside Bangkok. A single room held many people. Some were North Koreans like me. Some were from other countries. The first few days were brutal. Nightmares came every night. Security officers chasing me. My mother being dragged away. I woke up soaked in sweat, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember where I was. One day, I saw 2 East Asian men outside the facility, pacing. They might have been nothing. But fear doesn't care about logic. I stayed inside all day. Embassy staff visited once a week. "Mira, hang on. We're processing the paperwork," they told me. They brought snacks, drinks, small things. But when you're trapped, small kindness feels enormous. Other escapees in the facility helped me survive. "I was here 3 months, one woman told me. You'll make it." At night, we talked for hours. We cried. Sometimes we laughed. But my mind always returned to one place. My mother. What happened to her after I disappeared? Was she being punished? Did she get questioned? Did she even know I was alive? In the dark, I would whisper, "Mom, I'm sorry. I miss you." Then one day, the embassy called. "Mira, your flight to South Korea is ready." The words didn't feel real. Freedom was finally becoming a real destination. After 3 months, I was told, September 2024, you're leaving. September 15, 2024, I boarded a flight from Bangkok to Incheon. 3 months earlier, I came to this airport in a blue uniform. Now I was leaving as an escapee. An embassy staff member came with me to the airport. "Mira," he said, "South Korea won't be easy. But it's a new start. Stay strong." I nodded, barely able to speak. On the plane, I stared out the window. I used to fly in the sky as crew. Now I sat as a normal passenger. And for the first time, my mind felt quiet. No surveillance, no forced answers, no rehearsed lies. We landed at Incheon around 5 p.m. As I walked toward immigration, my legs trembled. This is real. I'm standing on South Korean soil. Agents from the National Intelligence Service met me. "Are you Kim Mira?" "Yes. You worked hard to get here. From now on, we'll help you." Then came debriefing and screening. Where I came from, how I escaped, what I did in North Korea. Weeks of questions. It was exhausting. But I understood. They had to be sure. Over time, they believed me. That I was truly an Air Koryo flight attendant. That I escaped in Bangkok. One investigator looked at me and said, "You were brave, making that choice at 22. In late October, I entered Hanwon. Hanwon is a resettlement center, where North Korean defectors learn how to live in South Korea. I stayed there for 3 months. The first time I walked in, I met someone my age. "How old are you?" 23. "Me too." We hugged and cried. 2 young people who had lost everything familiar, suddenly not alone. At Hanwon, I learned basics I'd never imagined. South Korean speech, computers, banking, how to ride the subway. The biggest shock was the internet. YouTube, news from around the world. South Korean dramas, even videos about North Korea itself. It felt like a door opening that never existed in my life before. One teacher asked, "Mira, do you want to go to college?" "Yes," I said immediately. "There are special admissions programs and scholarships for defectors. You can do it." College. In North Korea, that dream was locked away. Now it was sitting in front of me. At 23, it wasn't too late. It wasn't late at all. It was the beginning. After Hanawan, I moved into my first apartment alone. January 2025, a small studio provided through government support. To me, it was priceless. I locked the door, opened the window, and the thought finally came without fear. No one is watching me. I started crying. South Korean life was a daily shock. Convenience stores open 24 hours. Delivery apps. Walking outside at night without feeling hunted. I still remember my first cafe order. One Americano, please. The staff asked, iced or hot? I froze. In North Korea, you don't get choices like that. You take what you're given. I began preparing for university entrance. Because of my language skills, I chose interpretation and translation. Russian and English were my strengths. I wanted to use them to help other defectors someday. I also started working a part-time job at a duty-free shop in Incheon Airport. It felt strange. Not long ago, I walked through that airport as crew. Now I greeted customers as staff. But even during happy moments, the same shadow followed me. My mother. How is she living now? Did my escape destroy her life? At night, alone, I missed Cheongjin. The taste of my mother's soybean stew. The ocean smell. The alleys where I grew up. Sometimes I saw her in dreams. I would shout, "Mom!" and wake up to silence. Once, I watched a video online and suddenly saw a street in Cheongjin. The same road I used to walk. I sat there and cried for a long time. Then I spoke into the empty room. Mom, I'm living. I'm studying. I'm working. I'm free. Someday, if Korea reunifies, we will meet again. Until then, please stay healthy. Right now, I'm 23. A first-year university student. A part-time worker. A young person with dreams. Freedom is something I never thought I'd hold. Life is not easy. Sometimes people misunderstand my accent. Sometimes I face prejudice because I'm a defector. But I can still breathe here. Because here, I can choose. I have a dream. To become an interpreter. To help build bridges between North and South. And if reunification comes, I want to bring my mother to Russia one day. To my father's hometown. To stand there and say, Dad, I made it. I'm telling you my story for one reason. People in North Korea are not monsters. They're human beings. They want to love. They want to dream. They want to live normally just like anyone else. And I hope reunification comes. So families like mine can meet again. So people in the North can live without fear. At 23, my new life has only just begun. And I keep living holding on to one picture in my heart. The day I meet my mother again, in a reunified homeland.